Our top story: Britons are mourning the death of their Queen. On Thursday, Queen Elizabeth II, the UK's longest-lived and longest-serving monarch, died at Balmoral Castle in north-east Scotland. The Queen came to the throne in 1952. She reigned for 70 years, a period of enormous change. Charles, the Queen's eldest son, became king automatically. As soon as the Queen did die, automatically her son became King Charles III by a long-standing tradition. In his statement, King Charles said the death of his mother was a moment of great sadness. On Thursday, doctors first issued an unprecedented health bulletin saying that they were concerned by the Queen's health and advised that she would remain under medical supervision. Her close family soon rushed to the residence in the Scottish Highlands. Later on Thursday evening, the Royal Palace announced the Queen had died peacefully at home that afternoon. Queen Elizabeth II's tenure as the British head of state spanned the transition from empire to the Commonwealth. She witnessed both World War II and the end of the Cold War, and the UK's entry into and then withdrawal from the European Union. She saw 15 prime ministers come and go, starting with Winston Churchill in the 1950s and ending just 3 days ago with the latest British Prime Minister, who is now Liz Truss. Since the news of the Queen's ill health broke yesterday, crowds have started gathering outside Balmoral Castle in Scotland and Buckingham Palace and Windsor Castle in England. There is continuing floral tributes to be laid at those estates, with people from around London, across the United Kingdom and around the world paying their tributes to the late Queen Elizabeth II. A sombre moment for all here in the UK. As the former Prime Minister Boris Johnson put it, wave after wave of grief is rolling through the world. So that's the latest from here in London. Let's go now to some guests who are joining us to discuss a little bit more about this. I'm joined by Dr. Martin Farr. Now, he's a senior lecturer in contemporary British history at Newcastle University in the UK. Also Mark Brolin, a geopolitical analyst and author. Dr. Farr, if I could start with you, I'm just seeing that the plane has left Aberdeen Airport, the plane carrying King Charles on his return from Scotland to England. He has a lot of constitutional duties ahead of him at a time when he is going through grief, such a personal grief of a son losing his mother. So these are unprecedented times, a period of real change. How do you think we will see Prince Charles, now King Charles, take us through the rest of the day? We are expecting an address to the nation from the new British monarch. What do you think he might say? How do you think he'll position his message to the British people and the wider world?
Well, it is a remarkable event, and also it's a remarkable coincidence of events that we have a new government this week and a new head of state. And indeed, the Queen, her last official duty was appointing her 15th Prime Minister. It's astonishing that she was photographed in her official responsibilities and was dead 2 days later. This has obviously been planned for many years, and the choreography has been very well sort of expressed today. We have, as I speak, the House of Commons is giving its tribute to the Queen. The Prime Minister's spoken, Leader of the Opposition, and MPs will be speaking right through to 10 o'clock. But they will pause at 6 o'clock when the King will address the nation and indeed the world, when he gets to London, when his plane lands. And he will be meeting the Prime Minister shortly afterwards. And he will be doing, in fact, some of the things that haven't yet happened. Many of the ministers in the new administration of Liz Truss haven't actually been sworn in. So we're in a curious kind of pause in between responsibilities, given the fact that for the first time in 70 years, we have a change in the head of state. But this has been planned for some time, and the machinery of state will move very smoothly into the next mode. The Privy Council will meet today, where the King will be formally announced as King Charles III, and the coronation will take place at some point in the future. I think the funeral has been announced for the 19th of September, and the country will be in mourning officially until then.
Yeah, let's just cut in. Just thank you, Dr. Farr. The former Prime Minister Boris Johnson is speaking in the House of Commons.
At the very moment in Balmoral, as my right honourable friend has said, only 3 days ago, when she saw off her 14th Prime Minister and welcomed her 15th, and I can tell you, in that audience, she was as radiant and as knowledgeable and as fascinated by politics as ever I can remember, and as wise in her advice as anyone I know, if not wiser. And over that extraordinary span of public service, with her naturally retentive and inquiring mind, I think, and doubtless many of the 15 would agree, that she became the greatest statesman and diplomat of all. And she knew instinctively how to cheer up the nation, how to lead a celebration. I remember her innocent joy more than 10 years ago after the opening ceremony of the London Olympics, when I told her that the leader of a friendly Middle Eastern country seemed actually to believe that she had jumped out of a helicopter in a pink dress and parachuted into the stadium. And I remember her equal pleasure on being told just a few weeks ago that she had been a smash hit in her performance with Paddington Bear. And perhaps more importantly, she knew how to keep us going when times were toughest. In 1940, when this country and this democracy faced the real possibility of extinction, she gave a broadcast, aged only 14, that was intended to reassure the children of Britain. She said then, "We know, every one of us, that in the end, all will be well." She was right. And she was right again in the darkest days of the COVID pandemic, when she came on our screens and told us that we would meet again. And we did. And I know I speak for other Prime Ministers, when I say ex-Prime Ministers, when I say that she helped to comfort and guide us, as well as the nation, because she had the patience and the sense of history to see that troubles come and go, and that disasters are seldom as bad as they seem. And it was that indomitability, that humour, that work ethic, and that sense of history, which together made her Elizabeth the Great. And when I call her that, I should add one, Elizabeth the Great, I should add one final quality, of course, which was her humility. Her single-bar electric fire Tupperware using refusal to be grand. And unlike us politicians, with our outriders and our armour-plated convoys, I can tell you, as a direct eyewitness, that she drove herself in her own car with no detectives and no bodyguard, bouncing at alarming speed over the Scottish landscape, to the total amazement of the ramblers and the tourists we encountered. And it is that indomitable spirit with which she created the modern constitutional monarchy. An institution so strong and so happy and so well understood, not just in this country, but in the Commonwealth and around the world, that the succession has already seamlessly taken place. And I believe she would regard it as her own highest achievement, that her son, Charles III, will clearly and amply follow her own extraordinary standards of duty and service. Yeah. And the fact that today we can say with such confidence, God save the King, is a tribute to him, but above all to Elizabeth the Great, who worked so hard for the good of her country, not just now, but for generations to come. That is why we mourn her so deeply. And it is in the depths of our grief that we understand why we loved her so much.
We now come to Mother of the House, Harriet Harman. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and what an excellent speech from the Right Honourable Member for Uxbridge, which I'm sure will have resonated in every member of this House and indeed everyone in this country. It was a brilliant speech. I'm grateful for the opportunity to take my...
Well, just hearing there from the former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Boris Johnson, speaking in the British lower houses of Parliament there, referencing the Queen's indomitable spirit, her humility, and also raising some amusing anecdotes and telling that side, showing the Queen somebody who enjoyed a joke, who was witty and always had a ready smile. I've got one more question. I'll just go to Dr. Farr. I think what we are experiencing here in the United Kingdom also is something that only people perhaps born in the 1940s would have experienced before, a change of monarch when the Queen acceded to the throne when she ascended in 1952. So 70 years she's been on the throne, and always there amongst so much change, with 12 US presidents, 14 UK prime ministers, now the 15th, Liz Truss. So much change politically, economically, but just a constancy when it comes to the head of state and the monarchy. So I think for the UK, this is a moment of change that the vast majority of the country and these politicians speaking now won't have experienced before. So that's also, I think, perhaps what the UK is trying to understand at the moment.
Yes, it's a massive coming to terms with change. Even hearing the King referred to is extremely unfamiliar. There are 30 billion coins currently in circulation, for example, with her face on them. Queen's councils today have become King's councils as lawyers. Massive changes. The national anthem has changed today. God Save the King rather than God Save the Queen. Yes, this is somebody that everybody has known. And for a very long time. And it's almost as if it's like a family member, but everybody has the same family member. It's a shared national experience in a remarkable way. And I think we may be surprised at the depth of public sentiment, just how much this means to people, and how much the institution has indeed depended on the goodwill that she herself has conveyed. What interests me very much as a historian is how much this is the institution of the royal family, the monarchy, and how much is it as a devotion to Elizabeth II. We'll see soon how the King takes on the institution, how much public support there is, whether indeed in the Commonwealth there retains the support for the King remaining as head of state of Australia and Canada, for example.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Farr. I'll bring in on that point Mark Brolin, a geopolitical analyst and author. We've seen recently Barbados become a republic, and perhaps its Caribbean neighbour Jamaica also thinking about a move constitutionally along those lines. Are we, do you think, perhaps not in the weeks to come, but over the years to come, maybe starting to see a change when it comes to Canada, Australia and New Zealand? Perhaps to move towards having a Canadian, Australian or New Zealander as their head of state. That's something that perhaps some countries have been unwilling to do, while the Queen has been on the throne for 7 decades, recognising her duty and her service. But now is a time of real change in the monarchy with a king, as Dr. Farr was saying. Mark Brolin, do you think that we might see in the years to come a shift of more countries perhaps to become republics?
Yes, that could certainly happen. It doesn't have to happen for reasons I might come back to, but I think one key to her popularity that hasn't been mentioned so much yet is that she has, and the fact that she has become more rather than less popular, is that I think many see this age as an age of me narcissism, and she has provided the antidote to that, partly because it's her role to rise above the fray, but also because of this personal sense of duty that has made her carry on with the job without so much fuss. And I think that has made many of the heads of state and heads of government that she has met over or the countless heads of state she has met over decades, that has made them able to shine alongside with her. And I think she has been a glue in that sense. So lots of things could happen. And of course, depending on how the King now acts, that personally, that will make a big influence. Then again, we might also come in. I suspect we might also enter a period when many nations will like to be joined more willingly to the UK than what they've perceived to have joined previously. So I'm not totally sure Jamaica, for example, will sever the links. But yes, it could certainly happen.
That's something that has been alluded to. I think the Commonwealth, then, that's worth exploring a little bit more, with the Queen as the head of the Commonwealth. Now, when she was alive, she had hoped that Prince Charles, now King Charles, would take on the designated leader of that institution. How do you think that the Commonwealth will stay relevant and try to move away from those links with Britain's colonial past under the leadership and guidance of King Charles III?
Well, it's if the Commonwealth provides actual value in terms of trade and perhaps technology transfer, it has to provide proper functional value. Then if it does so, it certainly has a future. So I don't think it's necessary to see that the Commonwealth will break apart. But unless it adds that kind of value, then of course links will be severed, because they are sort of anachronistic without this functional added value.
And when it comes to the role on geopolitically, we know that Prince Charles has been, now King Charles has been very outspoken on the climate. In fact, his father was as well, going back many decades, even in the 1960s and 1970s, already advocating for a reduction of emissions, a reduction of the use of plastic and proper protection of biodiversity. When it comes to Prince Charles and now King Charles's animations on the world stage, perhaps being constrained by the role he finds himself now in as the British head of state, how do you think we're likely to see his role play in terms of his politics and things he'd like to advocate for?
Well, I think he will play down the sort of activism that he has. I mean, previously he has sent letters to ministers and stuff like that, and that has been very controversial. But when he has been asked in the past about what he would do as king, he has been saying that he's even mentioned, "I'm not stupid, I can't do that when I'm a king." So he will play that down. But during perhaps the weekly meetings with the Prime Minister, he might try to exert some influence, since he has strong views on these things behind the scenes in a way. But I'm quite sure it will be turned down quite a lot from what has happened in the past. He knows that he has to, otherwise he will be in major trouble.
And one thing that is also striking, speaking geopolitically, globally, has been the reaction across the world. If it's the Christ the Redeemer statue in Rio de Janeiro being lit up in red, white and blue, or Emmanuel Macron, the French president, giving a heartfelt address and signing a book of condolence at the British Embassy in Paris this morning, with messages coming in from across the world and across the Commonwealth, the Indian Prime Minister, the Russian President as well. She met so many people, she travelled to so many corners of the world, Queen Elizabeth II. I think that's also interesting, wouldn't you say, to note the fact that international influence. We've heard messages from former President Obama, current President Joe Biden as well, just really underscoring the fact that she knew so much and visited so many countries and so many personalities, political personalities, for 7 decades in countries across the world. That's also important to point out, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it was David Cameron who mentioned yesterday that she was the most experienced diplomat in the world. And I think just because she has been so fuss-free about her job, she has been appreciated as a diplomat, certainly, but perhaps not to the extent. It has been remarkable the way she has been in the background, even though a queen, when she has met all these people. So she has certainly played a massive role as a glue between the UK and the rest of the world, especially the Commonwealth countries, but also many other countries. So in that sense, she has been astonishing and perhaps still to this day underappreciated, simply because the fact that people who don't make a lot of fuss about themselves, they don't get as much appreciation often as they should be. And I think that certainly is the case in the Queen's case.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mark Burrow, and also thank you to Dr. Farr for your time speaking to us today. Just looking off screen, because I can also see former Prime Minister Theresa May is speaking in the House of Commons now, a chance for members of Parliament to pay tribute to the Queen, as the Houses of Parliament are sitting with MPs able to speak, to reflect on the death of Queen Elizabeth, and also now the fact that King Charles III has come to the throne. So on that, the way that it does work constitutionally in the United Kingdom is that after the Queen's death, her eldest son will succeed to the throne, and King Charles III is now the British monarch. The former Prince of Wales was born in 1948. He married Lady Diana Spencer in 1981. Now, they had two sons, William and Harry. Charles and Diana later separated, and the King married Camilla Parker Bowles in 2005. She is now the Queen Consort. With Charles coming to the throne, it means that his eldest son, William, is the new heir to the throne. His main duties will be to support the King in his royal commitments. William was born in 1982. He was just a teenager when his mother, Princess Diana, died in 1997 in a car crash in Paris. William is married to Kate Middleton, the Duchess of Cornwall and Cambridge, and they have 3 children together. Their eldest son, George, is now the second in line to the British throne. Prince George of Cornwall and Cambridge was born in 2013 in central London. After him, the third in line is William and Kate's middle child, Princess Charlotte. Charlotte Elizabeth Diana, to give her full name, she was born in 2015. And then the royal line of succession is followed by Prince William's youngest son, Prince Louis. And then after that, it is, in fact, Prince William's brother, Prince Harry. So the heir to the throne, Prince William, followed by Prince William's children, and then Prince Harry, also known as the Duke of Sussex, who stepped away from his royal duties in 2019 and moved to the United States with his wife, Meghan Markle. Now, Queen Elizabeth II saw 15 prime ministers form her government, from Winston Churchill in the 1950s to Liz Truss just 3 days ago. Many leaders came and went, but the Queen remained constant. UK's former prime ministers have been recounting their memories of their meetings with the Queen. They would have weekly audiences when they would attend Buckingham Palace, usually on a Tuesday, to speak with the Queen about governmental matters and issues of the day, and perhaps have a private chat. The contents of those conversations are very rarely revealed. We now have a little clip of Gordon Brown, a former Labour Prime Minister, just recounting some of his memories of spending time with the late Queen Elizabeth. which the The army, the armed forces have been paying a tribute to Queen Elizabeth. We have been seeing gun salutes taking place across the Commonwealth in Australia and New Zealand. There will be a gun salute in Gibraltar, the British territory in the far south of the Iberian Peninsula, very shortly. Each of these gun salutes will be 96 different rounds, one round for each year of the Queen's life. And formal marking from British and foreign armed forces of their recognition of the duty and service that Queen Elizabeth II embodied. Let's just listen in now to some of the gun salutes that are taking place today.